Welcome to another paint along session. I hope everything's fine on your end. So, grab your materials and let's paint this forget me not girl. I always start drawing the face with a circle divided in half horizontally and vertically. And since her head is tilted slightly, the horizontal line will also follow that angle. And if you haven't already, please check the link below where you can find the Facebook event page containing the reference photos and a space for you to share your artwork later. In between the brow line, which is the horizontal line, and the chin is the nose. Then for the rest of the facial features, you can just refer to the reference photo to help you decide where to place them. Another reminder, this is not a realistic portrait. This is a stylized one, so no need to stress over making her look realistic and 100% copy of the reference photo. As long as your drawing looks like a person, then you'll be good to go. I'll also speed up the process of my drawing since I know you kind of get how I'm doing it. I'm just following the guidelines I've set earlier and draw the rest of the features later. Now I'll add the flowers surrounding her. I'll use circles as the guideline for each flower. So if one flower is facing upwards, it will slightly become, the circle will become an oval to follow that shape. And just to balance everything out, I'll draw three flowers on her left. If you're facing the monitor on her left. Now we're ready to bring her to life with colors. I'll start with the skin tone area. I've used light red or burnt sienna for the base skin tone. And if you're not too sure about the color that you've mixed on your palette, just paint a tiny area on her face. If that doesn't look right, you can adjust by adding either yellow or pink and a bit of blue. And once you're satisfied, you can then color in the whole skin tone area. So that would be the face, the neck, and her shoulders. And I also covered her hair since I'll be using brown as an underpainting for the hair. I'll also make sure to leave out those two spots on her hair at the top and at the right side where it is the lightest. That would be the highlight of the hair. Now, as it starts to dry, I'll also prepare a darker color, a darker skin tone color for the shadows. I mix this base skin tone color, my light red, with a bit of burnt umber and just a tiny drop of violet, just to make this harmonious since I'll be using violets on the flowers later. Now for the shadow shapes, I want you to observe the reference photo carefully and follow what you are seeing. This looks funny right now, but it will all make sense later. It looks too dark, but don't worry. Once we add the hair color, everything will balance out. So don't be afraid to go dark with your shadows on the face and just follow the shapes that you are seeing on the reference photo. I'm not also too worried about painting only the face shape and avoiding the hair. Since the hair will be darker than the face, we'll be able to cover up all those colors that kind of went over the face shape to the hair area. So that's all good. Don't worry too much about that. My paper is starting to dry. It was a sunny day when I filmed this. So I think it's just the right time to start coloring in the hair. For the hair, I have two mixtures in my palette, though they are not visible. I've mixed burnt umber with ultramarine blue, and then another one is burnt umber with violet. So from time to time, I will switch from one color to the other just to make her hair look interesting and not too flat. Also, with the thin hair strands, you will need to make sure that you're applying just a light pressure for you to be able to produce thin lines. Now, if you're not confident with how you handle the brush and you don't have yet mastery over the brush that you're using right now, you can just paint the thin strands of hair later with a smaller brush, or you can also use colored pencil, a marker, or watercolor pencil to add those tiny strands. One thing that you have to observe though is how wet the skin tone area is right now. Mine is starting to dry, so even if I touch the skin tone area with my hair color, it doesn't blend with the skin tone. If yours is still shiny and still wet, then please wait for a bit and let your paper dry before coloring in the hair. Make sure also to leave out and paint around the flower shapes, since the flower should be lighter than the hair, and we'll paint those later. Okay, I'm starting to color in the flowers with lavender, and the reference photo shows a forget-me-not with some white spaces in between, so I'm leaving out that shape and color and doing negative painting, leaving out that star shape at the center. Then with a darker mixture that is violet plus blue, I'll re-wet the petal shape one by one, not soaking wet, just enough for the pigments to have a soft edge, and then focus on the shadows. Again, refer to the reference photo to help you decide where to place those shadows. Just to sort of separate the flower at the front, that center flower, from the flowers at the back, I will slightly change the color by adding more blue to my violet. And I am also attempting to make a softer shape for the other flower, so I've wetted the area first with clean water before dropping in my colors. Now, to give this a harmonious look, I'll, I'm going to use the same colors from the flowers to color in the clothes. It's also a personal preference since I'm not a fan of red and warm colors. So I decided to change the color of her clothes. Your painting reflects your preferences. So if you don't like the color that you're seeing on the reference photo, you have the freedom to change it and make it your own. Now back on working with the girl. Now that the colors have dried, she looks a bit pale, and the color palette looks a bit too cool, not so much warm. So what I'll do is, with my light red mixed with a bit of Scarlet Lake or Vermilion, whichever red you have, I will bring her to life by adding this reddish blush on her eyes, on beside her nose, on her lips, and on her cheeks. Just with a tiny adjustment like this, you'll see how much alive she looks right now. And then with a thicker and darker mixture of burnt umber and ultramarine, I can also define some of the features of the face like the eyebrows and the nose. The hair also needs some retouch, so with a darker mixture, I'll add another color, another layer. If you have questions on the materials that I'm using, the colors, the color choices, the techniques, or anything art related and watercolor related, just let me know in the comments section below. Just a little backstory why this Forget Me Not girl is important or memorable for me. This flower really stood out to me because one day our cat went home with a single flower on her head. She's a pure white cat with blue eyes, and I was laughing when she went home with that flower on her head. And then I asked my mom, since my mom really loves plants and she collects different kinds of plants, I asked her, "What flower is that?" And she said, "That's Forget Me Not." Oh, from that moment, this flower became one of my favorite flowers because I'll never forget the name. With the same blush color that I use on her eyes, I can also use that to add shadows, contact shadows, where the hair meets the skin and the shadow on the neck. Now she looks livelier than earlier, don't you think? From here on, I'll make adjustments as I see fit, like adding summer flowers at the right side since there's too much flower on the left side but none at the right. But I guess I'll just make a subtle suggestion of the flowers at the right. So I'll do wet on wet with blurred flower shapes. And then I'll also darken some parts that I think are too pale and add more light red or the reddish color on her face to bring her to life. So I'm looking forward to see your painting. Please use the link below. And from here on, I'll let the brush do the talking. I am afraid to paint portraits because they're not my cup of tea. But since this flower brings back cherished memories. I was able to overcome that fear and focus on the process instead of pressuring myself into making a perfect artwork. So, in painting your own artwork, I hope you can make it personal too, from your color choices to the different elements that you can add in on this painting. For example, butterflies, bees, or other background elements like the sky, or accessories, perhaps earrings or a necklace. I want you to add your personal touch on this painting and make it your own. Make it personal so that the process is not daunting, but instead it is refreshing, rewarding, and satisfying. So I hope for those of you who are trying painting stylized portraits for the first time or who are contemplating whether they can pull this off or not, I hope you focus on the process and on making this personal and your very own painting.